I was pleasantly surprised.
I think it's a slam dunk for the Cowboys.
He's a bona fide number one.
I love the fit of George Pickens.
This can be a major addition for the Cowboys.
How many rookies are going to touch the ball 250 times this year? Like we know Ashton Jeanty is.
Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, is no longer the face of the franchise. It is Travis Hunter. Penix might be the best quarterback in the division next year. I truly believe he can be the Browns' starter.
Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast. I am your host, Dave Helman, and just when you thought we were slowing down for the summer, the NFL sends a timely reminder that there is no slow season in this league. We have a great show planned for y'all today. We're going to talk about some bounce back teams we think could be in for a better season in 2025, as well as projecting some rookie awards. Tyler Dragon of USA Today joining us again to walk through all of that. But before we get there, some big news in the NFL as George Pickens, star Steelers receiver, traded to the Dallas Cowboys early on Wednesday morning. There was some smoke, some talk, some whispers that the Cowboys might not be done adding to their receiver core after the NFL draft. They make a splash in the biggest way possible, adding Pickens, just 24 years old, coming off a season with 900 yards, 12 career touchdowns, and 2,800 yards for the Pittsburgh Steelers. A big addition behind CeeDee Lamb in that receiver room. It's big news. We figured we'd give it big treatment. Like I said, Tyler Dragon was already joining us to do a different segment. So he and I also dove into all of the angles of this big trade from the Cowboys perspective, from George Pickens perspective, from the Steelers perspective, even from Aaron Rodgers perspective. We covered all of it before we got into the meat of the show. So let's just jump right into it. Check it out. All right, Tyler, there is nothing better at this time of year than finding out you get to rip up your set sheet. You can start all over with the show you had planned, because we had breaking news. We got a whole other conversation planned that we'll get into. But when a star receiver is traded on the day that we record, obviously we're going to jump right into that. The Dallas Cowboys long expected to do something at receiver. A lot of people thought it would happen during the NFL draft. It happens a couple weeks later instead, but they get their guy. I mean, of the realistic options that they could acquire to be their wide receiver 2 behind CeeDee Lamb, I'd put George Pickens at the very top of the list. They send the Pittsburgh Steelers a 3rd round pick this year and a 5th round pick in 2 years in exchange for George Pickens and a 6th round pick in 2 years. I'm getting convoluted, but the nuts and bolts that you need to know: George Pickens to Dallas, and the Steelers get a 3rd round pick for their former receiver. I guess let's just start with the obvious spot. I mean, what's your immediate reaction to the news?
Man, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, this trade happened in the wee hours here in West Coast time. And really, for the Cowboys, I was hearing that if Ted McMillan was available in the 1st round when the Cowboys were picking at 12, they probably would have drafted him. They didn't draft a receiver, obviously. They had a huge void at that number 2 spot opposite CeeDee Lamb. And for them to get a player like George Pickens, that is a huge boost for the Dallas Cowboys. He's a bona fide number 1 on some teams. He'll certainly be a number 2 in Dallas. And it gives Dak Prescott and the Cowboys a legit number 2 receiving option. Now, the negative side is there is some character concerns, some maturity issues. That is why Pittsburgh was comfortable getting rid of him for a 3rd round pick and some change. So if he can hone that in a little bit, kind of be a little bit more mature. He's in a contract year. He's in the last year of his deal. So if he can kind of have some, mature on and off the field, this can be a major addition for the Cowboys. And he has all incentive to, because this is on the last year of his contract. And for the Cowboys' sake, they're kind of used to receivers that maybe are divas or have character concerns. You can go back to Michael Irvin. You can Terrell Owens, Dez Bryant. So Jerry Jones and company, they have grown accustomed to receivers that have some off the field and on the field baggage, and they've kind of honed them in, and they've been very productive in a Dallas Cowboy uniform. So for Dallas's sake, maybe they are hoping that George Pickens could have the same kind of impact on the field for them as well.
If there's a team that's not going to bat an eye at reining in a loose cannon type of player, it's got to be the Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. I mean, you listed all the receivers. You could throw Randy Gregory in there. You could throw Ezekiel Elliott had his share of problems that they had to wrangle when he was at his peak. I mean, the list could go on and on and on, dating back over the 30 plus years that Jerry Jones has owned the team. So that makes perfect sense. There's so many angles of this that I want to hit. Number one, I feel like you got to applaud the Cowboys for thinking outside the box a little bit. It's funny. Right after the draft, I was talking to somebody in the building at the Star in Frisco, and I was like, hey, I really liked your draft. It's a shame you didn't get your wide receiver. Obviously, Tet McMillan wasn't there. The value didn't really make sense elsewhere in the draft, and they just didn't get a guy. Tough break. And they told me we got something in the works. And I was surprised because typically you don't see deals like this happen after the draft. Typically teams want to do a deal before or during the draft so they can turn around and use that pick on a player immediately. It's very interesting to me that the Steelers were willing to part with a player as good as George Pickens, knowing full well that it'll be a year before they can use this third round pick that's coming their way. I don't know. Like I said, I think Dallas deserves credit for being creative and getting the deal done. It does make my eyebrow raise up a little bit when I think like, man, how done were the Steelers with George Pickens that they don't care that they have to wait to use this draft pick?
Yeah, the timing of this caught everybody by surprise. And you have to believe that kind of the framework was in place before the draft. But the Steelers really wanted a higher draft pick, and the Cowboys wanted to go through the draft to see if Ted McMillan was going to be available or a receiver on their board was up when they were picking. And now that the draft is through and they didn't get a receiver of note in that process, you have to believe that they sweetened the deal for Pittsburgh to go ahead and ship off George Pickens. And really, he became kind of expendable when the Steelers got DK Metcalf. But when you look at for the Steelers' sake on their roster, it leaves a lot to be desired, especially at the skill position. I mean, yes, you have a Metcalf, but Calvin Alston and a Robert Woods, your 2 and 3 receivers. And that's, if I'm Aaron Rodgers, I'm looking at those collection of pass catchers, and I know they have Freiermuth at the tight end spot, but is this really a team that I want to play for? Is this a team that could contend in the AFC North with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow and company? When you look at the Steelers overall, and especially their skill position players, I mean, they're up there with the Cleveland Browns as far as their collection of weapons. But for the Cowboys, you certainly get it because there's a huge void at that number 2 receiver before they got the acquisition done. And now all has turned attention to maybe running back. Could they get a Nick Chubb or somebody? Because, yes, I know the Cowboys addressed the position and, with free agency with some lower level players. But I still believe that they're not done tinkering with their roster, especially in the offensive end.
I think it's a slam dunk for the Cowboys, regardless of whether they're done or not. I mean, everything you just said is exactly right. I love the fit of George Pickens. I mean, it's one thing just to have a good receiver, but an X receiver who can go down the field, open up the middle of the field for CeeDee Lamb. I looked this up. with a hat tip to the great Mina Kimes, because she put me on the trail on Twitter earlier today. George Pickens, during his time in the league, last 3 years, has 37 receptions of 20 plus air yards. The only people in that time span who have more, Tyreek Hill and Justin Jefferson. Now, I'm not trying to say that he's going to be that good, but he has been a fantastic deep ball receiver, and that's been with pretty meh quarterback play. Kenny
Yeah.
Pickett, the 30-plus-year-old version of Russell Wilson. I mean, regardless of what you think about Dak Prescott, he is going to be the best quarterback that George Pickens has ever played with. So the potential's sky high. You could get a fantastic season out of him. And if you want to re-sign him next year, the guy will only be 25 next year. He's 24 years old after 3 years in the league. It's incredible. And I would even point out, if for whatever reason this doesn't work out as beautifully as the Cowboys want it to, they'll get a compensatory pick back for him if he leaves in free agency next year. So I don't even really see the downside. Yes, like a third round pick is a pretty steep price to pay for 1 year, but the options that are available to you afterward, I think they make it a no-brainer. And the one other thing I wanted to hit on for you, because you hit this a minute ago, and I think it's worth pointing out, like, what exactly is the Steelers' plan now? Because look, even if Aaron Rodgers is coming, does anybody see the Steelers as like a real deal contender in the AFC, specifically in the AFC North? I mean, they could be a good team, obviously. Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record, but I don't know, man. I don't see this as a team that's ready to make any serious noise. And that makes me wonder if the Steelers, maybe, they would never admit this with Mike Tomlin as their head coach, but maybe the Steelers are thinking 2026 and beyond as when they really start trying to contend on the level that they're used to.
In the short term, I really don't understand what the Steelers are doing. I mean, you didn't really draft a quarterback with a high draft pick in this year's draft. I thought they should have went after Shedeur Sanders. You're pretty much desperate for Aaron Rodgers at this point, a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who's not the same quarterback of old. And yes, DK Metcalf, it was a huge blockbuster trade, but DK Metcalf is at his best when he has maybe like a 1A, 1B type receiver to complement him. You look at the Tyler Lockett's of the world, the Jackson Smith-Njigba's of the world. Jackson Smith-Njigba was a 1,000-yard receiver with DK Metcalf on the team. And so now you have Calvin Austin, Robert Woods, who's on the other side of 30. I mean, when you look at their collection of receivers, DK Metcalf is going to see a lot of double teams, a lot of safeties, going to be shade over the top of him. So he's going to get a lot of attention. And the Steelers don't really have a bona fide number 2 option. I mean, maybe they're going to funnel a lot of looks to Freiermuth, and maybe that's going to work. But when you look at their division, when you have a Lamar Jackson, the Baltimore Ravens, who are looking like they're going to be a shoe-in for another AFC North title, and you have to believe Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and the Cincinnati Bengals are going to be better than last season. The Steelers, you're probably looking at the third best team at best in the AFC North. So in the short term, I don't get it. In the long term, maybe you can package some of those picks to move up in the draft to get a quarterback in what's going to be a better quarterback class in the 2026 draft. But in the immediate future, I just don't get it for Pittsburgh because it does not get them better for the 2025 season.
Yeah, I don't want to misrepresent this. I mean, I think the Steelers can be a competitive team. They've done a good job of revamping their offensive line. The backfield is exciting with Caleb Johnson, the guy they just drafted out of Iowa. Jalen Warren's still there. It can work, and Mike Tomlin deserves some benefit of the doubt for the amount of success he's had since Ben Roethlisberger retired. But again, the standard in Pittsburgh is different than the standard in a lot of other NFL cities. I'm starting to think that maybe the goal is 2026. You have an extra third round pick now. Maybe you're just stockpiling a little bit of ammunition to try to get your quarterback in the 2026 draft. Not to say the Steelers are punting on the 2025 season, but it's hard for me to think that they are like a serious threat in this coming season. I want to throw this out there though. If you're a Steeler fan and you're looking for a silver lining, we do need to point out Mike Tomlin clearly has a pretty good sense for when it's time to pull the ripcord on a receiver. Antonio Brown fell off the face of the earth after he left Pittsburgh. Chase Claypool has virtually done nothing by NFL standards since he was traded to Chicago. Deontay Johnson is on his fourth team, and it's only been like a year since he left town. Even Juju had some success in Kansas City, but it's not like he's lit the world on fire since leaving Pittsburgh either. So if I'm a Steelers fan digesting all of this news, maybe I'm trusting that Mike Tomlin has a pretty good feel for when is the right time to do something like this.
And also, it's almost been 2 decades since Mike Tomlin's had a losing record. In fact, he's never had a losing record in the NFL. So the Steelers will be competitive. Mike Tomlin is one of the best coaches in the National Football League. I like the pieces that they picked up on defense. Obviously, they still have T.J. Watt and company on the defensive side of football, but their offense just leaves a lot to be desired. And I'm looking at, even if they get Aaron Rodgers, it's going to be a kind of a lethargic offense this coming season in Pittsburgh, unless they make some more big moves to kind of bolster their pass rushing attack. Their offensive line is decent. I like what they have in the backfield. They did lose Najee Harris, but they supplanted that with free agency in the draft and whatnot. But overall, the Steelers, I think they're going to be the third best team in the AFC North.
We'll see. We'll keep an eye on them and see if anything gains some clarity. Like I said, I mean, even if Aaron Rodgers signs in Pittsburgh, I'm still not sure I have total clarity on what the plan is there. But at the end of the day, I love it. I think this gives Dallas some much needed juice. I don't know how I view the Cowboys in the hierarchy of contenders yet. I'm not ready to say that this definitively changes my opinion.
They're still third in the NFC East.
Okay. Let's talk about it briefly though. I'll at least say this. I think this makes second and third a little bit murkier. If I had to say it today, I'm still going to put Washington above Dallas, but I think they needed to do something like this for people to take them seriously. Like if you go into the season with CD and a bunch of, a hodgepodge at the other receiver spots, then I'm just like, all right, we're playing out the string here. The Cowboys are going to be lucky if they get above 500. Whereas now I'm looking at it and I can see the vision for a pretty good team and a team that can push for a playoff spot. Maybe they are still the third best team in the NFC East, but I take them a lot more seriously than I did before this trade happened. That's how I feel about it, at least. But I don't think you're wrong. Especially as amazing as Jaden Daniels looked as a rookie, I think you still got to defer to Washington. But I think the gap is closer than a lot of people might guess. That's all I'm saying. Am I crazy?
Oh, okay. Without a doubt, the Cowboys got better. I don't want to poo-poo on your parade or any Dallas Cowboys fans' parade. But when you look at the NFCs, especially the Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, they're still clear away the favorites.
Oh, we're not even talking Eagles right now. The Eagles are so clearly better than everybody in that division.
But I think we're forgetting the Commanders did get Deebo Samuel, actually the day of the Super Bowl. And Deebo is not the same receiver he once was, but I believe he is a perfect fit in the nation's capital because of stylistically the way that they play. Bubble screens, short passes, digs, maybe crossing routes, slants. That's exactly what Deebo is still good at, and he'll fit right there with Terry McLaurin, and he'll be kind of a security blanket for Jaden Daniels. And their defense should be better as well. So the Commanders are still the second best team in the NFC East, and I would not be surprised if there could be three teams that make the playoffs in the division, but without a doubt, the Eagles and the Commanders are going to be playoff teams.
Let me throw this at you and just see how you feel about it. George Pickens winding up in Dallas matters more than Deebo Samuel winding up in Washington. That's how I feel about those two trades. And it's not to say Deebo can't be successful with the Commanders. I think George Pickens has more potential to elevate Dallas's offense than this version of Deebo at this stage in his career does for Washington. I think that's how I feel.
I agree with you, but I will say that both offenses got better with each acquisition.
For sure. I guess at the end of the day, again, we're saying Philly's here and everybody else is significantly behind. But before Wednesday, I thought of the NFC East as like a two-team division, to be honest with you. I really did. I didn't think the Cowboys did enough with their offense to need to be taken seriously. I think you have to take the Cowboys seriously now. Maybe not as a threat to win the division, but as a team that could make the postseason. I take them a lot more seriously than I did at the beginning of the week.
Yeah, poor Giants fans. We're not even talking about them right now. They're in the division basement and not even worthy of being talked about. But yeah, I do agree with you.
you'll have your time, Giants fans. I'm bullish on the Giants, but not as a threat to make the playoffs, unfortunately. But hey, you got to start somewhere, New York Giants. All right, let's get to what we were going to talk about before the George Pickens news came down, which is a story that you wrote for USA Today that I loved, which is taking a look at teams that could bounce back in a big way. And it's one of my favorite things to talk about because, look, like you don't need me to tell you that the Philadelphia Eagles and the Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs are good. Everybody knows that. But I love looking at teams that could surprise us in 2025, and that's what this story was. So let's just go through some of the teams that you chose, and we'll just let's start out with the first one, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, so I picked the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, I don't really believe that they're going to win the division, but they're relevant again. People want to see Travis Hunter, whether he can play both sides of the ball. I mean, he played over 86% of the team's offensive snaps last season in Colorado and over 80% of defensive snaps. So he wants to play both ways. The coaching staff wants him to play both ways. They pretty much mortgaged the future to get him. And he's going to relieve some of the pressure off Trevor Lawrence. I mean, Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, is no longer the face of the franchise. It is Travis Hunter. And that's a good thing for Trevor Lawrence because it's going to ease a lot of the pressure off him. Now, there's still pressure on him to be a franchise quarterback, but people are going to see and want to see Travis Hunter play. So that's why I picked the Jacksonville Jaguars on the list.
I love that point, which is that Trevor Lawrence doesn't feel like the face of the Jags anymore, which I've never met Trevor Lawrence, but I feel like he would prefer it that way. He just comes across as a very low-key guy. You know, he did his draft party when he was the obvious number one choice in the draft from his living room. Like that just seems like his style. So I love that point. And I'll just be honest, I love hearing you say this because I don't feel like I can carry the banner for the Jags anymore. Like I've been pumping the Jaguars up for the last 2 years. I've been a big believer in them. I am still a believer in Trevor Lawrence. I think he can be a really good quarterback in this league. But at this point, they've burned me too many times. Like I'm ready for somebody else to carry the torch here. And I'm happy to hear you say that because you look at it on paper, a healthy Trevor Lawrence, a new weapon to add to a receiver core with Brian Thomas Jr. They did just cut Gabe Davis on Wednesday, which I thought was pretty interesting. But yeah, I still like the overall talent level there. You got a really nice pass rush duo. We'll see what Travis Hunter does on defense, but on paper, this seems like a team worth being excited about. So I'm interested to hear you say this.
Yeah. And, I don't believe that they're going to win the AFC South, and maybe teams like the Titans are going to make some noise. The Houston Texans are still the team to beat in the division. But when you look at Jacksonville, they're certainly a team on the rise, headlined by Travis Hunter.
I think you can make the case for honestly anybody to win that division. Yes, I do think the Texans are the best team in the AFC South, but the Jags and if Cam Ward is that dude, and we've seen it 2 years in a row now. It was CJ Stroud before, and then it was Jaden Daniels. So don't tell me that Cam Ward can't turn the Titans into a serious team. So yeah, I mean, I need to see a little more from the Colts. I will say that. But
Yeah.
those other three teams, I think Jacksonville belongs right in the mix, even if you give the nod to the Houston Texans. But like I said, I've said that every offseason for a few years now. So maybe I'll wait over here in the shadows and just see what the Jags do. But I'm happy to hear you, Tyler, give them a little bit of love. What about the Atlanta Falcons?
I love what they did. Listen, the Falcons have been one of the worst pass rushing teams in all of football for the past few years. No acquisition has worked out. And they pretty much doubled down on their defense throughout the draft. And getting Jalen Walker, in my opinion, was the best defensive player available. He's kind of a tweener, can play off-ball linebacker, edge rusher. And then they got James Pierce Jr., the linebacker, pass rusher out of Tennessee. I mean, you can have those two edge rushers be your edge rushers of the present and future. And not to mention, they went out and got Leonard Floyd in free agency. So they not only doubled down, they tripled down on their edge rushing unit this offseason to kind of bolster what's been a position of need throughout the draft. And then Xavier Watt, the safety. I really like him. They did Justin Simmons. They let him walk in free agency. So maybe Watts can come in and fill the void at that defensive back position. But when I look at the Falcons, this is a team that can win the NFC South. I look at the division, and the Buccaneers don't really scare anybody. The Carolina Panthers certainly don't. And I look at this Falcons team, as long as Michael Penix Jr. continues to develop, this is a team that their defense can get better, and especially their pass rushing unit. This is the team that can win the division.
What do the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to do to get some damn respect? My goodness. They just win the division every year, and every year we look for somebody else to take over for them, and it hasn't happened yet. Here's my thing with the Falcons, Tyler, and it just boils down to how correct Terry Fontenot, the general manager, is, really. And I'm on the record. I don't love what they did in the draft because it feels like it just feels like such a big risk. It feels like such a big risk to forfeit a future first-round pick for a player that was available at the 26th overall pick. Now, if it works, then I'm an idiot, and the Falcons really might be ready to take a leap, because it's hard not to think about Jared Verse and Braden Fisk for the LA Rams last year. I mean, if James Pierce and Jalen Walker hit the ground running and are badasses from the very get-go, then the Falcons could be cooking with gas. And on top of that, if Terry Fontenot is right that Michael Penix Jr. was worth a top 10 pick, then everybody was wrong, and the Atlanta Falcons might be contenders for the next decade. But if that's not true, then not only could this team be disappointing, but then you don't have a first-round pick next year. And honestly, Terry Fontenot could be out of a job. So it just feels like there's a lot of variance here. Like, yes, the Falcons could be really, really good if these gambles pay off. But if they don't, we could be doing a whole bunch of shows about the new general manager in Atlanta. That's all I'm saying.
I get what you're saying, but this is a player in James Pierce that the Falcons coveted throughout the draft. I mean, they met with his family. They, studied his film and thought he would be a good fit in Atlanta. And when you look at how much they have struggled to rush the passer in recent years, the Falcons, pretty much they got tired of it. They got tired of being last in the NFC in sacks. They got tired of getting their defense obliterated and not making the playoffs. So props to them for making a splash. Really, 2 drafts in a row. A lot of people question the decision to trade up to get draft Michael Penix Jr. when you had Kirk Cousins. Now everybody's looking at that like, okay, that is actually was a really good decision considering what Kirk Cousins has done. Now your number 2 quarterback and maybe not even on the team this coming season. So I think the Falcons have done enough for us not to question their draft picks so far. We'll see how it pans out. But really, this NFC South division, yes, the Bucs have kind of had a reign over the division for the last few years, but Penix might be the best quarterback in the division next year. Derek Carr might not even play this coming season because of a shoulder injury. And then, yes, Baker Mayfield. If you would ask me who I could pick in first quarterback in the NFC South division, who would I start my franchise with? I would pick Penix over Mayfield, without a doubt, over even Bryce Young.
After
yes,
he's played 3 games, Tyler.
From what I've seen on the field from him and his potential, his ceiling, I think he's going to be better than Baker Mayfield, if not already. I'm higher on the Falcons than a lot of people are, but I'm willing to almost bet you that the Falcons will win the NFC South division this coming season, because I really do like what they have done, both offensively and defensively, not only in the draft, but free agency, headlined by Leonard Floyd, who's a veteran edge rusher who can help, bring along Jalen Walker and Pierce. So I really do think the Falcons are on the right track.
If these 2 rookies are as good as the Falcons think they are, and Leonard Floyd is your 3rd best pass rusher, that is a winning formula. Like I said, I'm happy to be wrong with the Atlanta Falcons, and that is what I think is interesting about them. Like I said, it's the variance, because if they're right, we could be talking more than 10 wins. We could be talking 11, 12 wins. This could be a really fantastic team, but they got to be right. Maybe I'm just the wimp. I prefer to roll with things that I've seen be successful. So the Bucs aren't the most exciting team in the NFL at all, but they have managed to win that division year after year, even though nobody thinks that they can do it. So we'll see. I am interested to see how all of that plays out. I don't think there's going to be as much debate about this one. I think most people agree the New England Patriots easily one of the biggest winners of the offseason and one of the biggest candidates for a bounce back year.
I mean, I just wish I had the money that the Patriots had this offseason. I mean, they spent well over $200 million in free agency worth of contracts. Then in the draft, you get a Will Campbell who can solidify the left side of your offensive line, a tackle, a Travion Henderson, and that 2nd round pick. I mean, that's kind of a thunder and lightning combination, Rhamondre Stevenson in the backfield. And really, they used their first 4 picks to solidify their offense. And I think that's going to bode well for New England. So I really do like what they did on the offensive side of the football. The Patriots, I would not be surprised if they kind of pushed to be the 2nd best team in the division behind the Buffalo Bills this coming season, because of all the free agent acquisitions that they got. Stephon Diggs. I mean, the Patriots, they're a team on the rise, certainly.
I'm just curious to see how quickly it all comes together, because after the last 2 years the Patriots have had, they could win 6 or 7 games, and that would be a huge improvement from what they've been. 7-10 with Drake May playing some decent football would be a step in the right direction after where the Pats have been. But if it all comes together even more quickly than that, then yeah, maybe this is a team that flirts with a wild card spot. I don't think that's out of the question at all. I think it's just a matter of, like I said, how much does that come together? How much does Drake May jump? How well do all these rookies play? I mean, it's easy to look at this draft class and get excited, but we know that it's not always a linear progression. Some of these guys might take a year, somebody might get hurt, hopefully not, but I mean, that's just the world that we live in. So how quickly it all meshes is what I'm watching here, because I do think the potential is here. I think the Patriots will be a better team, but does better mean 6-11 or does better mean 9-8?
Well, Drake May, next season, he's going to run out of the excuses. Yes, he's still going to be a young quarterback, but they have a nice blend of young players and veterans. You got a Milton Williams, that's what huge free agent acquisition of Carlton Davis, Harold Landry. So they've really bolstered both sides of the ball for Drake May and company. And really, when you look at that division, the Miami Dolphins seems like they're going in the wrong direction. All you hear out of Miami is what Tyreek Hill is doing off the field. And then you have the Buffalo Bills. Yes, they're going to be good. New York Jets, what is Justin Fields and company going to do? Yes, he has a rapport with Garrett Wilson, but are they really a team to scare anybody, especially in that division? So the second best team in the AFC East is up for grabs. And as we've seen, the second best team could be good enough to get into the playoffs. It's just a matter of if they can take the next step. And that's particularly Drake May. If he can take the next step, I would not be surprised if New England is a wild card team next season.
There are so many starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now that are 25 or younger. Like almost half of the league is 25 or younger. Obviously, Drake May is in that number. And yeah, I think so much in the NFL right now is riding on whose young quarterbacks develop the best and how quickly they can do it. So I mean, it's the same thing with Michael Penix Jr. Like, how good is this guy and how quickly does he get good could be the difference between the Patriots being a middling team or we're talking about the Patriots as returning to their former glory. I mean, it really does happen that quickly. And if you don't believe me, let's talk some Commanders football. Let's talk about the Houston Texans. I mean, those teams were not on the radar to matter at all at this time after those drafts. And every year we're reluctant to learn these lessons, I feel like. So I'm very interested to see how quickly Drake May can progress. Last one here. I'm dying to hear your case because I think most people see the Cleveland Browns as playing for 2026, but you have them as a bounce back team.
If you were to tell me before the draft, the Browns would draft Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins, Harold Fannin Jr., and Shedeur Sanders, I would have told you Cleveland aced the draft. Aced the draft.
Yeah, it's funny what, like, looking at it in hindsight, you're like, wow, yeah, people would have been really excited for that 3 months ago.
So, and yes, I get it. Where they drafted Shedeur or Harold Fannin, whatever, maybe their quarterback room isn't that good. Maybe they're waiting to the 2026 draft to acquire their quarterback of the future. But Shedeur was my second best quarterback going into this draft behind Cam Ward. In my opinion, he can be a franchise type quarterback, a quarterback that can grow, develop, and you can win games with. We'll see. He's going to have to prove it on the field. But Mason Graham was the best 3-technique defensive tackle in the draft. The Browns got him. Harold Fannin Jr. broke FBS records for receptions for a tight end. The Browns got him. He was one of the best, most athletic tight ends in this year's draft. And Judkins just led Ohio State in rushing, can fill the void from Nick Chubb, can run in between the tackles. So I like what Cleveland is doing. Now, does it make them better than the Baltimore Ravens? No. Does it make them better than the Cincinnati Bengals? Probably not. But this is a team going in the right direction with some young talent that they can build with. And I think those are pillars that the Browns can move forward with, headlined by Shedeur Sanders, who I think will be a starter before the end of the season.
You know what I love about the Browns? And I was looking through their roster, taking notes, looking at their offseason when I was prepping to do this. The beauty is in the eye of the beholder with this team, because I can say this is a very similar roster to the one that just went 3-14. It's also a pretty similar roster to the one that went 11-6 the year before that. Like, a lot of the cast of characters are the same. Yeah, I mean, swap out Amari Cooper for Jerry Jeudy, who finally broke out as a Cleveland Brown last year. Swap out Nick Chubb for a couple of young rookies. Obviously, we haven't seen Quinshon Judkins or Dylan Sampson in the NFL, but they were drafted highly for a reason. there should be expectation of at least being competitive. The only problem for me is, in my opinion, it is riding on Joe Flacco rediscovering the magic that he had during that 6-week stretch in 2023. And he's 40 now. And I mean, maybe Shedeur Sanders gets in at some point during the season and maybe he's successful, but I don't think that's going to be the week one plan for the Cleveland Browns. So at least in the early going of the season, I assume it's going to be a bit of a competition in training camp, but I think Joe Flacco will be the guy for at least a few weeks, which just makes me wonder how effective he can be this time around.
Yeah, in my opinion, I do believe Shedeur is going to eventually be the starter, whether that's week one or whether that's week four. I do believe before the end of the season, maybe the first quarter of the season, Shedeur is going to be the starter. Now, I want to preface this because my article only had really one playoff team that I think was going to bounce back from not making the playoffs into the playoffs. But the teams I picked, I really believe that their arrow is pointing upwards rather than, a full-blown rebuild and going down. They're moving in the right direction. Do I think the Jaguars are going to win the division? No, but they're moving in the right direction because they got a franchise piece. The Patriots certainly moving in the right direction with all they got in free agency and through the draft. The Falcons, we just discussed, I think they're going to win the division. They're the only team on the list that I believe are going to win their division. But the Browns, when I see what they did in the draft and the young pieces that they already have and what they are continuing to do, I think they're in a team on the rise, and they have some pillars that you can build around. And fans should be excited about Shedeur. Yes, he really took over the draft after day one. Where's Shedeur going to go? After day two, where's Shedeur going to go? I mean, it was the Shedeur Sanders draft after day one, pretty much. I mean, he dominated the headlines. But on the field, he is a productive player. No, he does not have the strongest arm, but he's accurate. He can throw with precision. And I truly believe he can be the Browns' starter, and they will find that out sooner rather than later. And on top of that, you got the best defensive tackle in the draft. You put him in the same defensive line with arguably the best defensive player in football and Myles Garrett. I really do believe the Browns are moving in the right direction.
That's a great point. And this is the ultimate parity-driven league, so it's easy to think about things in terms of who's going to make the playoffs this year. And maybe the Browns will. That's not really my point. But forget about that for a second. And you have to be encouraged about where the Browns feel like they're moving. I mean, for starters, it's got to be a big lift to the Browns fan base to be turning the page on the toxicity of the last few years since the Deshaun Watson trade. I mean, just to be moving out from under that cloud is nice. And then you lock up Myles Garrett, who is a franchise legend for probably the rest of his career, or at least the rest of his prime. You get him another weapon on the defensive line that will make his job easier. You draft some quarterbacks that can hopefully develop into somebody. They've got Jerry Jeudy signed for a few years after his big year. So you're in a good spot. And if those guys hit, that's great. And even if they don't, they gained an extra first round pick in next year's draft. So even if this year isn't the fairy tale story, they're moving in a very nice direction for 2026 and beyond. I think that's definitely worth remembering, even if maybe this year isn't the year that they break out.
Yeah, I'm not at all saying that they're going to make the playoffs this year, but Cleveland fans, they can have solace in the fact that they're moving in the right direction. And maybe they did draft their quarterback of the future in Shedeur Sanders. We shall see, though. He's going to have to prove it on the field. And like Tom Brady said, that slide should motivate him.
He would know about being motivated by draft day slides. That's for sure. All right, real quickly, second half of your story. Also, after the bounce back teams, you took a stab at the Rookie of the Year awards, which have been especially fun in the last couple of years with the amount of breakout success that we've seen. So I wanted to trade some predictions with you.
Okay.
I don't think all of these are going to be super off the radar. But that's the fun thing about Rookie of the Year is like very rarely are we completely caught off guard by the guys that win these awards. So let's start on offense. Give me your prediction for Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I have Travis Hunter. I don't think I'm raising any eyebrows or surprising anybody, but the Jags have pretty much said that he's going to play both sides, but maybe focus on offense. And when you have the quarterback like Trevor Lawrence throwing him the ball, you have Brian Thomas Jr. at the opposite side, a bona fide number one. Travis Hunter is probably going to be covered by number 2, number 3 cornerbacks. And so he's going to feast off that and believe he can be an 800, 900, or 1,000-yard receiver in year one, especially with the quarterback that they have and the receiver in Brian Thomas Jr. playing on the opposite side. So that's why I have him as my Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I hope Travis Hunter wins just because it would mean he had that fun of a season. I went with an even more obvious one, and I think let's just throw out there that if Cam Ward does what the last few big-time rookie quarterbacks have done, he's going to win because quarterbacks win these sorts of things. If the Titans win 9 or more games this year, I think Cam Ward is the answer. But I'm going to go with Ashton Jeanty, the new Las Vegas Raider. I just, look, do the math here. How many rookies are going to touch the ball 250 times this year? Like we know Ashton Jeanty is. We know Pete Carroll loves him a run game. We know that the Raiders have a quarterback now in Geno Smith. So it's not as if you can completely clog the box to shut the run game down when you got to worry about Geno and Brock Bowers. I just think when in doubt, go with the volume guy, and Ashton Jeanty is going to get a hell of a lot of touches. If it's not a quarterback, I think it'll be him.
I do like your pick. And then they're certainly going to run the ball in Las Vegas, and they need to. They were the worst rushing team in all of football last season. So they're going to feature him a lot, and I think he's going to do well in Las Vegas.
All right. Now a harder one, in my opinion. Who you got on defense?
Abdul Carter. And to me, it's the situation that he's in. Do I believe the Giants are going to win a lot of games? No. But the strength of the Giants team is their defensive line. Brian Burns at that other edge rusher spot. You have Dexter Lawrence at the defensive tackle. So when you look at Carter, he's not going to be seeing many double teams, if at all. He's going to be blocked by a left or right tackle, not going to see a lot of chip blocks. Those are going to be to the Dexter Lawrences of the world, the Brian Burns of the world. And then you have Kayvon Thibodeau as well. Now, I believe Abdul Carter is going to start, and he has the potential to rack up 8 to 9, 10 sacks in his rookie season. And that's numbers good enough to be the Defensive Rookie of the Year. I believe he is going to make an immediate impact in New York and make some noise. And I think he's going to easy favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Okay, for starters, I think you're right. You know, I like if I had to bet on this award, I would roll with Abdul Carter as well. But in the interest of some variance, I wanted to pick somebody else, and it gets really interesting when you start trying to think of who could win it other than Abdul Carter. I mean, is Travis Hunter going to play enough defense to qualify for that type of award? It's hard to say. Then after that, I mean, Mason Graham plays defensive tackle, winning Rookie of the Year as a defensive tackle. It's definitely doable, but it's a little bit harder from that position.
Yeah.
I mean, so then you look at it, you got guys like Walter Nolan and Kenneth Grant. Hard to pick a defensive tackle. I guess Mikael Williams in San Francisco is probably worth a mention. Similar situation where maybe he gets some favorable looks because of Nick Bosa. There aren't a lot of obvious candidates among the major draft picks. And that's how I wound up going with Jahdae Barron, the Broncos' first round pick.
I like it.
I feel silly going away from a pass rusher, but in my mind, a rookie DB, it sounds like he might start out at nickel in Denver, so it's not as if he'll be exactly opposite from Patrick Surtain. But either way, he should be getting looks because nobody wants to throw Pat Surtain's way. So if he's good at his job, he's going to have a shot at breakups. He's going to have a shot at interceptions. That Broncos defense was really, really nice last year. It's not like he has to do a ton of heavy lifting. So I can see this guy having 4 or 5 interceptions as a rookie because nobody wants to throw at Pat Surtain. And yeah, let's get the DBs some love because it feels like a pass rusher award in recent years.
I love that pick because he's probably going to cover a secondary option for the opposing offense because nobody wants to throw the Pat Surtain's way. So yeah, he can be a defensive rookie of the year. Another dark horse I have, Mike Green from the Baltimore Ravens. He was a first round talent in my opinion. Dropped to the second round. He's good enough to be Baltimore's best pass rusher. And this is a team that needs pass rushing help. He led FBS in sacks last year. And this is a guy has a high motor, has a good pass rushing arsenal attack. He can be Baltimore's best edge rusher and rack up a lot of sacks and rack up a lot of statistics to win the award too. So that's my dark horse, Mike Green.
I thought about saying Malachi Starks as well. I'm very excited about the rookies in Baltimore, but again, it's a tough award to win as a safety. You're counting on getting thrown a lot of footballs. Like let's be honest, you got to have picks to win Defensive Rookie of the Year, or else Quinyon Mitchell might have won it this past year. So we need a guy to get some interceptions. Maybe Jahdae Barron can do it for the Broncos. Tyler, we covered a lot of ground, man. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate you hopping on.
Of course. Thanks for having me on. See you next time.
Anytime, man. Thanks. All right. That does it for us. Thanks again to Tyler Dragon of USA Today for hopping on. And thanks to y'all for tuning in. We will be back next week with 2 all-new episodes highlighted by the 2025 NFL schedule release. That is Wednesday, May 14th. We will have a special episode for y'all previewing all the most exciting matchups, talking about the behind the scenes, how the NFL schedule gets made, what role Fox plays in all of that. It was a really fun episode last year. I'm looking forward to it again this year. Make sure you don't miss it. Make sure you're subscribed. Go find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, wherever you prefer to get your pods. You can find us there. You can find us on all the socials at NFL on Fox Pod. We do appreciate it. I will chat with y'all real soon. Until next time, I appreciate it so much, and I'll talk to you again soon.